All right, there we go. All right, why don't we get started? Welcome everybody to tonight's Councillor Chat. I'm Councillor Glen Gower, joined by Jordan Moffat, who works with me on my team. How are you, Jordan?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you, Glenn?
I'm feeling a little low energy today. I don't know if it's the heat and humidity or just too many Zoom meetings, but yeah, feeling a little lower energy than I'd like for one of these chats. So hopefully we get some good questions and everybody can keep me on my toes as we go.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it is pretty hot here. I don't have the AC on, but are you keeping cool?
Yes. I was kind of hoping we'd get that break with the thunderstorms and everything to try to break the heat a bit, but it did not happen. Okay, so it's Councillor Chat. So this is, I hope it's live. I hope it'll be live and interactive. So if you're joining us on Zoom and you want to ask a question, you can use the Q&A panel. You can also raise your hand and we can bring you in like kind of like a call-in radio show. And if you are on Facebook, you can type a question in the comments on the Facebook Live page. Jordan is going to be monitoring all of these questions coming in, and he'll get your questions asked and then answered by me. So if you do have anything Stittsville related, any topic, and we'll take about an hour here as we go. I had a few things I just wanted to chat about off the top while we're waiting for some of those questions to come in. One is about traffic safety. Continue to get a lot of inquiries from residents about traffic safety. You've probably seen we have new flex stakes and delineators and speed cams that have gone up all around the area. With springtime, it's when we roll out the traffic calming, but I know there's still a number of streets and communities where we're having some issues. The one thing I want to ask residents to do is to file a report with Ottawa Police. When you do see speeding or dangerous driving, go to ottawapolice.ca/report. And this is really important because although I'm in touch regularly with police, they look at all this data they're getting from the reports and they make decisions on where they're going to send extra enforcement based on this data from residents reporting. So it's kind of a squeaky wheel thing. The wards like Stittsville or the neighborhoods where they're getting the most reports are likely going to get more enforcement. So it's really important that people do that. It helps me be a better advocate to get more police resources and enforcement for our community. I know they are out there every day handing out tickets for speeding infractions and missed stop signs. Also, police are doing their Operation Overlord. So this is the program specifically aimed at stunt driving and overly loud engines and mufflers and so on. And they've been handing out dozens of tickets every weekend across the city on busy arterial streets. So they are out there ticketing. I know this is a continuing problem on Hazeldean Road, Carp Road, Fernbank, Robert Grant, and so on. So anyways, file a police report, ottawapolice.ca/report. And if you have a request about traffic calming, you'd like to see some of those flex stakes or additional measures in your community, please email me and my team. One thing I'll flag, we've had a lot of requests from Blackstone, Fernbank area. This area is a bit of a challenge because a lot of the streets are still under ownership by the developers. So we can't go in and put in our regular flex stakes and speed boards until the city takes over ownership. So there's a few streets that qualify this year where they didn't last year, but there's still a bunch of streets that we don't have ownership over as a city yet. So still a work in progress there. So that's what I wanted to mention about traffic reports. Vaccines, Ottawa Public Health. Some good news, over 2/3 of adults in Ottawa have now received at least one dose of their vaccine. The bad news is we're continuing to have a problem with supply from the province. So the province keeps expanding the eligibility for vaccines. For example, yesterday morning, anyone over 70 could go in and book a second dose or rebook their appointment. So that adds about 80,000 people to the pool of people who are looking for appointments, and we don't have any left right now in Ottawa. There's a few being added every day and here and there, but certainly not the number that we need. So yesterday, Mayor Watson called on Premier Ford to send us 40,000 doses to allow us to get caught up and be able to provide appointments to people who are looking for them. The other thing I wanted to update, I'm just going to pull up my email on COVID. This is good. This is an update we got from Ottawa Public Health today. First of all, the wastewater signal in Ottawa's wastewater has been trending downward, so that's very, very good. There was a bit of an upturn around the May long weekend, but it's gone down again. 69% of Ottawa's adult population has had at least one dose as of end of day yesterday, and we're at 9% of people who've had 2 doses. And then the other encouraging one is the case count per week. So they look at this per 100,000 population. Now, back in mid-April, it was about 208 cases per 100,000 people. Now we're down to 27 cases per 100,000 people. So almost 1/10 of the rate that we were seeing just a couple months ago. So that's really positive news. Some other updates I wanted to give you off the top. One was, let me share my screen here. A couple things that we posted recently to my website. So let me go share screen. There's my web browser. Something we added just today, actually, a summary of what we heard around active transportation and missing links in Stittsville. We were just blown away by the feedback here. A couple months ago, we asked you to send us your suggestions and your ideas and your observations around missing links for sidewalks and pathways in our community. And we had well over 100 people who contacted us. And I think we had about 400 people who participated in a survey. Just incredible amount of feedback and some really, really useful information that we've summarized and shared with city staff now. We had to basically give them recommendations for missing links that would cost between $500,000 and $2 million, which is actually narrows it down quite a bit, eliminates a lot of projects. But if you took part in this project and you're interested in the results, you can go to my website. We've done a pretty big summary here of what we heard from residents. The other thing I wanted to show you on my website was about the parks and recreation facilities master plan. That's very boring and bureaucratic, but basically what it is, the city's looking for your feedback on what you'd like to see in parks and rec facilities over the next 15 or 20 years. So if you've ever written to me about how the city needs more pickleball courts or cricket pitches, or more dog parks, or more adult fitness options, or more ice pads, whatever it is that's important to you, it's really important that you provide your feedback at engage.ottawa.ca, because the results of this feedback and the work that staff is doing is going to guide how recreation facilities grow and change over the next couple decades in Ottawa. So like I said, if there's ever been a pet peeve or an idea that you have around what we need for recreation, this is a good chance to have your voice heard. So engage.ottawa.ca, and of course you can find more information on my website. All right, I have said a lot right off the top. I'm just going to have a quick look here. We don't have any questions coming in from residents. I know we've got a lot of people watching, so if you've got a question, please feel free to use the Q&A, or you can add a comment into the Facebook feed, and happy to answer things. Jordan, I mean, you work really closely with me on all our City Hall issues. What are some of the topics we've been hearing a lot about from residents, or what kind of questions are we getting lately from what you've seen?
Well, we get a lot of questions about traffic, of course. That's the main one. Do you want to talk about that a bit more?
Well, yeah, we talked about traffic safety. You mean like road projects, or what's been done
Yeah, I
about
think
traffic,
one thing when we see a lot of new development proposals come in is we get a lot of questions about how that traffic will be managed, where the cars will go. Anytime we're adding new houses, people want to know how those people will get around once we put the houses in.
Yeah, I think one thing I've noticed is, although I talk a lot about it, I think there's not a lot of awareness in the community about some of the planned transportation projects. Like one of the ones that I talk about all the time is Robert Grant Avenue. And I'm sure a lot of residents have heard me talk about Robert Grant, to mention Robert Grant, and maybe they're not quite sure what that is. So if I can, maybe, let me see if I can find it. Here, I've got it here. Okay, let me bring it up and share it on the screen. This may not be the best map, but it'll at least give us something to anchor this off of here. All right, share screen, transportation map. So this goes back, first of all, this goes back to the 2013 Transportation Master Plan. Can you see that on the screen, Jordan? Is it okay?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. the transportation master plan is this document or priority list that the city uses in order to plan for budgeting and building road transportation projects. Wood and so on. And then eventually this road is planned to continue north, heading up over Hazeldean Road, heading up over Maple Grove Road. And then it kind of links up with Palladium Drive. It actually splits here. So this yellow line links up to Palladium Drive and then the Queensway. And then this blue line is where the future LRT line would go. So it's a really important transit corridor. And this is designed as an additional north-south route to take the pressure off of Terry Fox, off of Stittsville Main Street, off of Carp Road. Now, right now it's built as 2 lanes. Eventually, it'll be built as 4 lanes in both directions with bike paths and sidewalks and transit along it as well. So a pretty significant project. Now, if you notice here though, Stittsville North-South Arterial, it's really hard to see, but they do have dates here from Hazeldean to Abbott, 2020 to 2025. Well, this will get built, but right now it's looking at it's going to be more on the end side, the later side of that 2020 to 2025 timeframe. So still longer than we'd like. It's something that my team and I are working on to try to get funding before then and try to get it reprioritized. Further north, right now, it may not happen until a decade from now, 2031. To me, that's really not acceptable, though, given the amount of new homes and apartments being built here in Stittsville. And we need to speed this up, and we will be able to, hopefully, as part of the review of the Transportation Master Plan. Last one was done in 2013. The next one will be completed within the next couple of years. So I'll talk more about that later. But you'll see some other projects, not just Robert Grant here, that's important. We've got Fernbank Road, which right now is after 2031, scheduled to be upgraded, Fernbank Road, Maple Grove Road, Huntmar Drive. They have something here they call the Canada West Main Street. That's the extension of Stittsville Main Street, also in the last half of this decade. So, you know, back in 2013, that was 8 years ago, I think a lot of the needs for Stittsville residents have changed. I think the development patterns have changed a bit. So my goal is that as the city updates this transportation master plan, I believe it's 2023 is when they're finalizing that we can move some of these projects earlier in the queue so we can get more of the transportation infrastructure that Stittsville needs built as soon as possible. You asked another question though, Jordan, which was how do we move all these people in Stittsville? And I have to mention, we're not just going to do it with roads and cars. Like Stittsville has 40,000 people now. It's going to be growing to 50, 60, 70,000 people. Even with wider roads or new roads, there's really no way that those roads can handle that volume of cars. So we're going to have to shift more people to transit, more people to cycling, more people to walking. So yes, we are going to need to have more employment in the area. We're going to have to improve sidewalks and pathways. We're also going to have to get rail and bus rapid transit out to Stittsville, because that's really all of the new development applications are really the transportation plans are justified on having proper rapid transit. Now I see, you know, Orleans with rapid transit. I see Barhaven with rapid transit. Canada, well, to some extent, depending on where you live, you've got rapid transit, but Stittsville and Canada are really underserved by transit. So that's a big area that I'm going to continue to push on. And I hope residents will support that as well. We need to improve transit in this area in order to improve congestion and to get people moving and where you want to go.
Okay, we have a few questions for you.
Oh, good. I'm looking forward to these.
And they are all pretty different. So I'm going to take them one at a time instead of trying to mush them all together.
Okay.
And you're still sharing your screen. I don't know if you want to. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
So I'm just going to take them in the order they came as best I can. We put out a piece on the website maybe last week, a couple weeks ago, city information about wild parsnip and the programs that the cities are doing wild parsnip. This question is about mosquitoes. What can we do to have Stittsville sprayed for mosquitoes / larvae?
Okay, good question. Ottawa Public Health actually does a program. They've been doing it the last few years where they put larvicide into every storm sewer. You might have noticed on the sewer grates, there's a splotch of spray paint, of bright spray paint, and that's to indicate the over the course of June, July, and August, Ottawa Public Health treats each of these sewers, and when they've dropped in that pellet of larvicide, they spray the sewer grate to indicate that it's been done. So that's one thing that Ottawa Public Health does across Stittsville and across the entire area in order to control mosquito population. And specifically, Ottawa Public Health is concerned about the risk of West Nile virus. If you have a catch basin in your backyard, typically city staff and Ottawa Public Health will not go onto your property, but you can call 311 and request that a drop be made there. And the other thing, if you go to the Ottawa Public Health website, there's all sorts of information on what you can do to limit standing water in your backyard or on your property to not provide mosquitoes with a place where they can breed and live. Now, I imagine what this person, what's the name of the person who asked that one, Jordan?
Her name is Andrea Rosales.
Andrea, probably thinking of a program they have in Canada North, where every resident of Canada North pays, I think it's $10 or $15 extra on their tax bill for a spraying program with mixed results. There's some residents who say it does a good job, some who don't necessarily agree with that. The geography in Canada North is a little bit different with some of the large ponds that they have there. It's certainly a possibility for Stittsville. So far, I have not really seen a tremendous amount of public interest, nor have I been convinced that it would actually have a significant benefit just from just some of the geography and the way that our large bodies of water are located here in Stittsville. But certainly something we can look at it. In the meantime, we have a really good program from Ottawa Public Health about with the larvicide and the storm sewers, which is a pretty common breeding ground for the mosquitoes. But I know they're bad out there this year.
I had no idea about the sewers. That's new to me.
Yeah.
Here's your next question. Where are you at with the Main Street revitalization study?
Oh, who asked that one?
That's from Patrick Guccione.
From Patrick. Oh, Patrick from the Community Voice. Hey, Patrick. Well, our steering committee has been meeting monthly to get updates from the community, starting some initiatives and some ideas for what this volunteer group can do. The steering committee is about a dozen people, a mix of residents, business owners, some representatives from our service clubs, and I'm a participant in that as well. One of the most significant things to date is it's called a public realm study that is kicking off. So I'll try to make this could be like a half-hour answer, so I'll try to make it really succinct. 6 years ago, the city introduced the Stittsville Main Street Community Design Plan. It was largely designed to guide development. So when buildings are developed along the street, it has zoning guidelines, it has guidelines around materials and design. What the plan doesn't have in any great detail is what happens in the city's right of way. So the city roadway and sidewalks and the grassy boulevards immediately next to the street. So what this public realm design plan is going to do is actually help us create a very detailed design for what the road should look like. So what's the configuration of lanes for cars, for cyclists, for parking, for pedestrians, for sidewalks, for shared pathways? What are the street lights going to look like? Where will those street lights go? Because a lot of them right now are right in the middle of the sidewalk. What do we have to consider around accessibility? What should a bench look like? Should it have a special design? What street furniture or different amenities should we be looking at? And this is really important to have this because right now, without having a plan or any kind of budget associated with it, it's really hard for me to go to city staff at budget time and say, we need this on Stittsville Main Street without having a budget number attached to it. So it's going to let us get into very specific details so we can start that planning work. It'll also make us, I guess I could say it'll make us eligible if there's ever federal or provincial funding for Main Street initiatives or for cycling and active transportation initiatives. There's been a few rounds so far of COVID recovery funding from the federal government, for example, but we haven't been able to apply it to Stittsville, Maine, because often these funds require us to finish projects by the end of the calendar year. And without even having a design or a budget, we're ineligible to apply for those grants. So having this plan in place, which we're hoping to have finalized by this fall, will put us in a better position to plan and to budget and to take advantage of any grants that might come through from other levels of government. There will be an opportunity for public feedback. So I'll be sharing information through my website and email newsletter once we have some more information about the process.
All right, this next question is something you touched on earlier, but it's probably worth repeating. Questions from Joseph Carbonetto, who we just saw last week.
Yeah.
At the Volunteer Awards. Glen, we are still getting complaints about racing and loud noise at night, especially in the Fernbank, Maine areas, as well as Abbott in Maine. Can you mention about reporting these incidents? He doesn't want to sound like a broken record. That's obviously very important.
No, I think a broken record's good in this case. First of all, Joseph, congrats. Joseph was one of the nominees in last week's Volunteer Awards for the Roger Griffiths Memorial Citizen of the Year and also for Business of the Year for all of his activities in the community. So congrats, Joseph. Yeah, it's really important that residents file a report with police at ottawapolice.ca/report. Even if you don't have a license plate, if you report and be very specific about the date and time, it will help direct police resources to where we need it here in Stittsville. This is a problem all over the city. I mentioned earlier, it's on every arterial road, every major arterial road in the city, you name it, from Carp Road to Hazeldean Road to Bronson to Heron. I'm getting very frustrated with it, and I know so are other councillors. We had an update from the police chief about a week and a half ago on what police are doing with this Operation Noisemaker. And one of the key things he said was, please report it. Police are out there handing out tickets, but the more details that residents can share about where and when they are hearing this, the easier it is for police to report. I suspect a large part of this is because of the ongoing provincial shutdowns. A lot of the tickets being handed out are to teens and younger adults. And if you think about what teens and younger adults have to do these days on a Friday night or a Saturday night, well, movie theaters are closed, bars and restaurants are closed. A lot of those activities that typically young people would be involved in just are not operating. And I think that's part of why we're seeing more of this street racing happening this year as compared to other years. It's always been a problem, but over the COVID situation, over the pandemic, it's been particularly acute. So I had a call with our community police officer, I believe it was last Monday, just to talk about some of the efforts here. And they certainly are aware and actively ticketing and trying to make a dent and trying to stop this across our city.
All right, next question is from Jeff Tyndall, recent Bruce Timmermans Cycling Award winner.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier about our active transportation missing links survey we put out. We actually put out two questions. The first one was just like big picture stuff. What are missing links in Stittsville? And the next thing we asked for was refining it to specific projects within that $0.5 to $2 million range that kind of excluded some of the bigger items.
Yeah.
That's the context for this question. Jeff wants to know, he's wondering what actions we can see on the missing links projects that were identified above the missing link budget or don't fall under the criteria. They're still very important, and we need to see solutions to make them safer.
Well, it all comes down to funding for the most part. I could give you some examples of some specifics. So a lot of people identified, say, Fernbank Road, for example. Right now, it does not have sidewalks or any kind of protected bike lane there. That's a project that's going to happen eventually when the city funds that as an arterial road upgrade, still several years out. So there's some things like that that are on the horizon as part of larger upgrades, and they will happen eventually. I could really use the help of residents. Over the next year or two, we're going to see some opportunities where residents can share their feedback on some of these larger priorities. And it's really important that city staff hear from Stittsville residents. We did do a round of feedback about a year and a half ago, and Stittsville had, if not the highest, one of the top 2 or 3 wards in the city in terms of responses. So that's good. Another one that came up quite often was a crossing over the Queensway, a safe crossing for bikes and pedestrians. There is a pedestrian crossing in Canada by the Canada Town Center going over the highway. There's really no safe crossing here. You can't even legally walk over the Queensway at Huntmar. So there's again a possibility that gets upgraded through a regular city project, but that would be a bridge over the Queensway is usually a provincial Ministry of Transportation. So certainly it's something that our city's in discussions with regularly with provincial officials around how we can achieve that kind of upgrade. There are some programs in the US, some of the large departments of transportations in the US states, where they spend billions of dollars every year in the budget for highways and highway construction. And one of the ideas I'm really interested in is there's a few of the states have earmarked a small portion, like take even 0.5% of $1 billion budget and take that money and put it into cycling and pedestrian infrastructure. And it adds up to quite a bit of money and it can make quite a difference. So that's an option I could see as well, is trying to work with the provincial government to earmark some of the funds for these massive transportation projects like highways and even rail and bus and so on, and put some of that back to active transportation that cities could access and use to kickstart or to take a real jump forward in terms of our of the bigger projects for cycling and for pedestrians. And I think the other thing too is looking at other levels of government and funding through COVID recovery. I'm cautiously optimistic that federal government and provincial government will continue to fund some of these active transportation and transit projects through the recovery.
All right, this next question is something we've gotten not directly a lot of emails about, but this general area. Allison wants to know when Victor Street is going to be repaved.
I'm assuming, Allison, you mean Victor Street, where the construction is happening with the Hazeldean crossings. I'm trying to remember because I saw an update on this last week, I believe. So there's sort of 2 levels of paving. One is they're supposed to do a temporary pave where they had gravel down, and that should be happening imminently if it hasn't already. And then there's the permanent paving, which would happen once the new sidewalk is installed. And basically, once construction has pretty much come to an end, they'll be doing that at the same time that they do the final paving within their development. So that would likely be, I'm not sure if the development's going to be done this fall or next spring, but it would be as that particular developer finishes up their work there.
I have 2 questions from Joseph Carbonetto.
All right.
First one. Bike rentals for Stittsville, Maine? Is this a crazy idea?
I wish I could ask Joseph live. Do you think there's a market for that? Is it a crazy idea? I don't think any idea is crazy. And I think any idea that could bring some more activity to Stittsville Main Street is worth looking at. But I've never heard that idea before for Stittsville, Maine.
He said he thinks there's a market.
All right. All right.
I think so too. What the heck?
I know, well, I think a lot of people may have seen, if you've been downtown recently, there's a scooter program going on downtown with a few companies doing scooter rentals. We had a long discussion about a month ago at Transportation Committee at the city around setting up a municipal bike share. And it's not going to happen in the next year or 2, but I think there's enough appetite that the city's at least going to look at that, bike sharing, bike rentals. So perhaps in the next few years, and if there's an opportunity to have a suburban area as a pilot project, I'd certainly put Stittsville's name forward to be considered for that.
And the other question from Joseph, he wants to know if you have any updates about the Louisiani's old lot.
The Louisiani's old lot is now owned by Inverness Homes, a developer. They have a development application. I believe it's known as 1518 Stittsville Main Street. a development application they call the station because the architecture is inspired by an old railway station. It's currently in the development review stage. In the last 2 or 3 weeks, they've submitted a revised proposal based on the initial set of review and comments from city staff and the public. And so it's moving along. It's a bit of a slow process for approvals, but they are moving things along. I don't have anything specific to update on it other than doesn't appear to be any roadblocks, and things are moving along nicely with that one. I can't wait. I think it's going to be a really great addition to Stittsville Main Street. There's a restaurant planned for the ground floor and some apartments in behind it. So it's exactly the kind of development that we want to see. A little bit of commercial, lively, restaurant space, retail space, and then more people living close to the street as well. And it's a really important site right along the Trans-Canada Trail.
And while we're waiting for more questions, how about you plug our Let's Bike virtual workshop next Wednesday?
Oh, good idea. So a week from tomorrow, we are partnering with Enviro Center to deliver a workshop on urban cycling, basically some tips and tricks to help people feel more comfortable and safe and confident in cycling around the community. We did one of these last year with Enviro Center, and it was a really, really good program. So doing it again next week, and it's part of Bike Month. So June is Bike Month, and people are being encouraged to ride their bike as much as possible and log their kilometers in the Let's Bike app. I should show here a couple things, Jordan. Share my screen. So let's see. So I believe it's Wednesday. I think next week's the 16th, and it is at 7 p.m.
6 p.m.
Oh, it's 6 p.m., an early one. Okay. So yeah, there's the information on my website about that. Let's Bike, a virtual workshop on urban cycling. So that's on Zoom. And then I wanted to show you the app.letsbike.ca. Oh, I'm not logged in. I was going to show you my kilometers logged. I'm closing in on 100 kilometers, just little errands around the community. And I think I've been out every day this week except for that rainy day last Thursday. So the kilometers add up quick.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about this, Ottawa's doing the first Parks and Recreation Facilities Master Plan. They want to hear feedback from residents.
Yes.
What feedback would you give? What do you want to see for parks and recreation facilities citywide and in Stittsville specifically?
Well, one thing I'd like to see is maybe a recognition of the impact that diversity has on park use. For example, we have a new park going in the Fernbank area that is going to have a cricket pitch. This will only be the 4th or 5th cricket pitch in the entire city of Ottawa. And there is a large and burgeoning cricket community who is just dying for more places to play their sport. And that's a direct result. We're seeing a large a demographic shift, and there's more people who play cricket. I got to wonder, what other sports are we missing that are just a little bit off the radar? So often when we do these consultations, we hear a lot from established organized sports like the hockey associations or soccer clubs and so on. But I think it's really important that we hear from some of the sports and participants in sports that are a bit off the radar usually. The other one is dog parks. That certainly comes up often. I know when you did a read through the document, Jordan, you noted that they did a per capita, the number of dog parks per population in Ottawa. Well, maybe it'd be better to look at the number of dog parks per dog and try to do a little bit of insight into where the dog population is. We do have Shea Woods. It's going to be converted into a permanent dog park at some point, and there's a dog run that we're working on in the southern part of the community, but there really aren't that many dog runs compared to some other cities. I think as with summer weather getting hotter and thinking about the heat wave we're in now, thinking about more outdoor water facilities. We don't have beaches here. We've got some outdoor pools in Canada. There's the private pool at Amberwood, but we have some splash pads that are really, really popular. So looking at what we can do to keep people cool. And I think overall, I just would like to see more variety in our parks. Whether that's basketball nets or volleyball courts or cricket pitches, tennis, pickleball, dog parks, playgrounds. There's fitness facilities for older adults, pathways for recreation, picnic areas. Like there's all sorts of things that people have brought up. And I think that's maybe what resonates the most with me is we need some more variety in the park amenities that we have in our community.
And a new park amenity you just put on your website was about the picnic shelter.
Yeah, we're through some federal funding, we're going to be building a new picnic shelter at Cardell Rec. So thanks to everybody who shared your thoughts on that one, mostly around the color and the design of it. So that'll be a good addition there. There's so many sports that use that area for tournaments and everything. It's also the site of Stittsville's Canada Day. So a shelter like that is really useful amenity to have on for big activities, group activities. Someday we will get back to group activities, and it'll be really helpful to have a shelter like that.
So we went from broad parks. Here's a specific question about parks that maybe you could expand to something more broad, but washrooms at Village Square Park.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, this has come up a few times before. I think as we get more programming there, eventually we're going to need some washrooms there. The challenge is around cost because you need plumbing for that and quite a bit of construction. So I think that's a good idea. And that's one of the pieces of feedback that would be useful for staff. There are not many parks in Stittsville with a washroom or a field house. And if that's something that people think is important, that's some of the feedback that you can provide through the survey.
One question we get a lot, or it pops up every so often, we have a lot of new residents coming into Stittsville, a lot of new homes being built, and some people will move into their new home and look across the street and see an empty lot. And they don't know what's going in there. Maybe they're told one thing from the developer, they may be told one thing by the realtor. So how can people know what's going to be built in their neighborhood when they see an empty lot, if it's going to be a future park or a future school, or if it's going to be developed as more homes? How can they find that out?
Well, first of all, you could send me an email and we can help you track down that information. There's also a city resource called a Development Information Officer. And by the way, if you're a real estate agent watching today's call, I don't know. I wish more people knew about this DIO, Development Information Officer. You can call 311 and ask to be connected to a DIO, and they will answer any question you have about what land near you may be zoned for, what you're allowed to build, what kind of additions you could put on your home. So there's a really good resource. The other thing is, I'll share my screen again. The other thing is, go back to my website. There's a development tab up here. And if you click on that tab, a map is going to come up. And on that map, you will see a little icon for every development application that's currently being reviewed by the city. Now, some of these have already been approved. Some of these are on hold or not necessarily going forward, but it'll give you a rough picture of some of the activities. And if you have a specific piece of land that you're interested in, you might be able to find the information here as well. Any other questions coming in, Jordan?
I'm just checking now. We had a couple comments. Ginger wanted to know where to give feedback, so I can just drop that link in there, but it's engage.ottawa.ca.
Yep.
Comment from Jeff Tyndall about biking facilities on Main Street with bike parking to help support businesses.
Yes.
And that is the extent of it at the moment. No new questions. So please send in your questions if you have them, folks.
One thing I should mention too, I mentioned 311 in the context of the DIO, the Development Information Officer. The other one is about just 311. If you see anything in the community that needs immediate attention, a street light out, a garbage that needs emptied, a roadway that needs a street sweeper. The other day we had some sweepers down on Iber to clean the shoulders for the cyclists. Any kind of city thing, maybe your garbage was missed or your recycling bin was damaged. Maybe there's a car that's been parked illegally on your street for a long time. What else? I just sent one in the other day about a broken button on a stoplight. Call 311. There's a call center and agents are 24/7. Sometimes you have to stay on hold, but they have one of those features where you can get them to call you back once the hold is done. So you can enter in your phone number so you don't have to sit on your phone and waste your battery. You can also call us, but for small issues like that, we are literally sort of doing that work ourselves, putting it through 311. So you can certainly send it to us, but with 311, you will get your own tracking number and your own follow-up once the issues are resolved. By all means, come to us, especially though, when it's ongoing issues. You know, if you've called 311 for a streetlight repair and that repair is taking 3 or 4 weeks, call us and we can check on the status. Or if, you know, if you've got a continuing issue with, I don't know, there's a million issues I could choose from, but if you've got a continuing issue or a more complex issue, by all means email us, but often 311 can be the quickest thing, especially after hours and on weekends, because often my team won't get to that until Monday morning, and you know, possible it could have been resolved through 311 on the weekend for something like that.
All right, Patrick has a question that I was going to ask you, but I'll give this one to Patrick instead. Big announcement yesterday, I believe. Big announcement yesterday about the electric bus funding from the Canadian Infrastructure Bank. Patrick would like to know what your comments are.
Well, I think it's great. I think I've been a little disappointed at how slow things have moved on electric buses so far with the city, and this access to the loan. I think it's up to a $400 million loan from the Infrastructure Bank of Canada. Really gives us that security or assurance that we'll be able to move it along quite a bit quicker now. I think from a environmental point of view, obviously it's important that we convert from diesel to electric as soon as possible. I haven't read the full report yet. It's coming to Transit Commission next week, so can't really comment in too much detail about it. I think one thing that'll make a difference though for residents immediately is quieter buses on the street. One of the comments we often get is about the noise from buses traveling down residential streets, and electric buses are a heck of a lot quieter. So there's another benefit beyond the obvious environmental benefits as well.
All right, question from Joseph. Is there a dedication planned for the Switzer building?
Well, that's a good question. That's being built by Huntington Properties. They did a groundbreaking ceremony last summer or early fall. So I would imagine they're going to do some kind of a ribbon cutting ceremony once that building opens up. I'm pretty sure they'll be doing that, but that'll be up to Huntington. I know we have a whole bunch of commemorative park namings that are in the queue that we want to commemorate. Lee Boltwood, there's a park that's been open well over a year and a half or 2 years over in the Abbotsville Crossing neighborhood. There's also the Yakabuski Park over in Blackstone South. And we haven't been able to hold opening ceremonies, dedication ceremonies because of COVID. We were set to do some this spring, and then the province sent us into the shutdown mode with restrictions on outdoor gatherings. So hopefully this fall, we can organize them. I think we have about 4 or 5 commemorative naming ceremonies that we'd like to hold at local parks. So it'll be a busy fall for that, fingers crossed.
All right, here's a question from me.
Okay.
We had a update a few months ago about the new official plan. You can give a bit of background on this as well, but we should be getting more information on that soon. So what can folks expect for the new official plan process from now until the fall when it gets voted on at council?
Yeah, so the official plan is basically the master planning document for the city. By law, the city needs to do an update of it every few years. This is the major bureaucratic policy planning exercise in this term of council. It's a pretty big deal at the city. It kicked off in the spring of 2019, and this fall we plan to finalize the official plan, and then it goes to the province for review and approval. Earlier this year, I believe it was in January, the city released a draft official plan, draft number 1, and collected feedback from residents. And over the past few months, city staff have been reviewing that feedback and making changes. We got a preview of it last week, and there have been some substantial changes in response to that feedback. And the next iteration of the draft is going to be published within the next couple of weeks. Do you remember the date, Jordan? I can't remember what the actual publication date is.
I don't remember either. I can check.
It's coming soon, because I believe on June 17th, there's a public meeting that I'm going to start promoting to talk specifically about the new official plan and how it affects suburban communities like Stittsville. And then they're releasing this report really early here in June to give people the whole summer to review, to ask questions, to provide feedback before planning committee and then city council look to do a final debate and approval in September, early October of this fall. So I don't want to get into any specifics of what's in the change plan, because I want to make sure that document's out there first, but there have been some pretty significant changes. The whole thing is based around a couple of key ideas. One is around 15-minute neighborhoods. So making it easier all over the city to be able to walk or bike to things in your own neighborhood. Also more of an emphasis around focusing the most development around transit stations, existing transit stations and future transit stations. We're trying to reduce the amount that the city is sprawling and put more focus on having the city build up in existing areas closer to transit. And it's to set up, how's the city going to grow as we go from 1 million people today to about 1.5 million people in the coming decades. And a lot of it too is about how do we put Ottawa on a competitive edge. Like, we're not a small city anymore. 1 million people is pretty significant. We're competing against other cities all over North America for jobs, for people. We want to have a great quality of life so people want to move here and live here. And so this is really about setting up what are the economic needs of the city as well. So there's a lot of thought around what needs do we have for future industrial space and commercial space and retail space. How do we plan out transportation so that we can keep people moving, so people aren't stuck in traffic? I hear so often from people who say, I moved to Ottawa from Toronto because I couldn't stand the commute. Well, if we go from 1 million to 1.5 million without a really good plan for where these people are going to live or how they're going to move around, we'll just end up with that problem a few years from now. So this is what the official plan is all about. And it's so important as we look at how to guide the growth over the next 20 years or so.
That was a broad question. Here's a very specific question for you.
Yes.
What's happening with the old municipal building across from the Goulburn Museum?
Nothing that I'm aware of right now, although I think in the next year or two, the city is going, they're producing a report where they're looking at it and assessing all the old buildings and deciding which ones should be kept for civic use, which ones could be redeveloped, perhaps for things like housing, affordable housing, and which properties are better off being divested of, so basically sold to private interests. But right now that building is very much unused. I think there's some remote offices for city staff there. There's the old, I was in there a couple years ago, and there's still pictures up of the old Goulburn council there. So it's kind of an interesting building. But right now there's the city works depot and behind it, but no plans that I'm aware of for the building at this time.
I hope no one's going to accuse me of softball questions, but you're in front of your bookshelf, and I'm wondering if you have any book recommendations about books about cities.
Oh, I do. Over on this shelf over here, there's a bunch of city books. Let me pull one out. This is one I know that you've read, Jordan. Perfect City by Joe Barrage. Actually, Joe Barrage contributed a bit to the Ottawa's official plan work. And he basically does an analysis of a whole bunch of global cities to look at what makes them successful cities. What are the factors that attract jobs and innovation and people, and what makes them diverse, vibrant, exciting cities to live in. I read it last summer, and a really good read. So that's what I'll recommend.
We do not have any outstanding questions at the moment. So do you have anything on you want to get on your soapbox about, or any closing remarks, or?
Well, can I give you another book recommendation?
Sure, yeah.
Because as I pulled out this one, I saw another one. All right. Happy City by Charles Montgomery, Transforming Our Lives Through Urban Design. So another really good book if you're interested in planning and so on. That's a good one. Yeah. Do I have any other soapbox things? Let me think. I've covered everything I wanted to, I think, today. This has been a really good discussion with lots of questions coming in today.
Yeah, I'll do one more check to make sure I didn't miss anything here.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, looking ahead, we mentioned we've got next Wednesday, we've got the Let's Bike, the Urban Cycling Zoom webinar. Next Thursday, the 17th, we've got that meeting about the official plan focused in on suburban areas. And then on Thursday, the 24th, we've got a presentation from City of Ottawa staff on waste diversion, which doesn't sound very exciting, but it's actually another big project of the city. A whole new evolution and strategy coming from the province around garbage recycling green bins. So be a presentation from the city about some of the work that's underway there. So if you're interested in the environment, if you're interested in garbage, if you're interested in how the city's growing and changing, that'd be another good one to check out.
So I have an event some point in July on the development application at 6171 Hazeldean.
Oh yeah, that's the one between the Giant Tiger and the Water Tower, basically. Quite a big mixed-use development, lots of different homes and types of homes there. So I think that's July 7th.
I have it as the 6th, but I think it might be in that range at the very least.
Yeah.
If it's not pinned down.
We'll have to confirm that and start getting the word out about it. All right, well, I guess we could wrap it up then. This has been a really good chat. Thanks for everybody for joining us. If you do not yet subscribe to my newsletter, please go to my website, glengower.ca, and subscribe. It comes out every Wednesday. We're just putting the finishing touches on tomorrow's edition right now. I do my weekly video update on Facebook Live and YouTube every Saturday morning. And oh, there is one other thing. I just thought of something. Tomorrow's City Council. I was just thinking about that. I've got an inquiry that I'm introducing at City Council tomorrow about all this work that Bell and Rogers are doing, the utility work they're doing to install the fiber. We have been getting so many calls and emails this spring about questions that people have about the work. Sometimes it's just what's the schedule for the work, but some people have had some issues about the utilities restoring their landscaping and so on. And I know the city does regulate it to some degree, although it's really a more of a federal regime around what the city has to allow access for. But just getting a lot of questions. So I've got an inquiry to city staff tomorrow at City Council just to get some clarity around what ability the city has to regulate, to monitor, to enforce, and really to ensure that these utilities are cleaning up and returning city land and private land to what it looked like before they started. So I'll be sharing some more information about that in the coming weeks. And with that, I think we can wrap things up. Have a good night, everybody. I'm going to head out on my bike here. It's a little bit cooler with the sun going down. Thanks, Jordan, for your help tonight.
No problem. Bye, everyone.
See you.